Today, we're going to be checking out the GA-8 Airvan, also known as the Flying Box. Now this could be one of the best study level GA aircrafts in Flight Simulator right now, but we'll get back to that. This is by SimWorks Studios, and for those who aren't familiar, they've made aircrafts like the Kodak 100, which was a huge success in 2020. And they've done even better in the Airvan, specifically with their brand new system called Systempulse. Now this completely levels up Flight Simulator. It adds a whole dynamic simulation within the aircraft for persistence of wear and tear, dirt and grime, but specifically parts of the aircraft and engine, which means over time the pistons can get worn down, the oil needs to be changed, and it also ages as you don't use it. So don't forget to change the oil if you haven't flown it in a week or two, because you'll need to. But today, we're going to take it up for a flight around the Gold Coast and test out all these dynamic failures. So let's jump in the cockpit and get going. Alright, and here we are in the Flying Box. Now first thing we're going to do is chuck on the power, so both masters are going on, and we'll get the fuel pump on as well. Now this aircraft's relatively easy to start. Again, it very much is study level, so EGT temps, oil temps and pressure all matter, because you can very easily damage the aircraft. But with a basic startup procedure, you shouldn't have any issue getting it fired up, at least on the second go. There she goes. Perfect. So now we're just going to monitor the RPM and set it to warm up, which is around 1200 to 1400 RPM. We'll just let that oil temp come up a bit. But in the meantime, fuel pump can come off. We can also get the beacon light on and avionics on now as well. Just do a quick flight controls check. Not really preparing for this flight or anything, I just kind of want to get it straight up in the air and test this thing out. Now I've taken it on a couple of flights, haven't done anything spectacular with it. I just wanted to get a feel for it, just so I know what I was talking about. But with all that said, our temps and pressure are looking all good. We're in the green. So let's start getting our taxi on out of here. Now the first thing you're going to notice is the sound package of this aircraft. It is absolutely phenomenal. I love the sounds and how they interact with the world. But just take a look at this aircraft. It is phenomenal. The animations of it shaking around and vibrating are done to perfection, which is a really hard aspect that developers struggle to capture. How alive the aircraft is. So many parts vibrate and move and wobble, specifically on the exterior of the airframe. And it's really great to see how everything comes alive in this cockpit, especially when using chase plane. But here we are pulling up to runway 19. So let's get ready for takeoff. And I'll show you how this box really sounds. Alright, and we're climbing out of Southport. Now the first thing to note is the performance of this aircraft. And I'm not talking about the frame rate, but rather the speed and ability of the aircraft. It is really pitch sensitive and a little sluggish. So if you're taking off from shorter runways or a bit more chaotic terrain around the airport, just take note that it is a bit of a flying box, so performance is less than ideal. Now, another thing I noticed was the pitch. The pitch is extremely sensitive. So if you even just jolt back on the yoke a teeny bit, you can really send the aircraft into a 10-15 degrees climb very suddenly, which is something I noticed on my previous flights as well. Especially on landing, you can get really sensitive on that pitch and it can really stuff you up. But with that said, we're going to keep on climbing out and we'll just circle around the ocean just off the coast of the Gold Coast, and we'll start looking at some of these dynamic failures and how they impact the aircraft. Alright, and we're over the water and we've got a safe bit of altitude to start testing things out. Now, as you can see in the EFB here, we have plenty of different items to fail. We've got general electrical systems, lighting, instruments, avionics, engine block, propeller, even more. As you can see right now, I'm failing the pistons, and you'll actually notice that not only does it affect the engine itself, the sounds, the RPMs, and visually, it all gets affected. It's not just a cosmetic thing, it genuinely impacts every aspect of the aircraft, which means you can really practice your engine out procedures or different failures all the way down to individual pistons becoming a problem. But let's take a look what happens when I fail multiple pistons. Straight away you'll notice the engine starts surging a bit, the smoke becomes more intense and the RPMs become even more unstable. But also, let me just quickly show you a prop strike. So this is an intentional prop strike on a dirt runway. Look how sick that is. The amount of detail in this thing is crazy. But let's test out the major oil leak and see what happens when we activate it. And the first thing, as soon as we activate it, is the oil pressure will start dropping. Not only that, but in the exhaust, you'll see oil will burn really quickly, giving off that blue hue. So you can see that the aircraft is dynamically being affected by all these factors. And not only that, when you look at the oil gauge, you can see that it's struggling to pressurize the oil. It's struggling to find oil, and when it does, it quickly depletes and the pressure drops again. And along with that, you'll see other systems also being affected by the oil leak. You can see temperatures start rising, RPMs are still unstable, and altogether the aircraft is slowly starting to fall apart. Obviously, if you keep this up, the engine will completely fail altogether. But let's take a look at some electrical faults. So I've faulted the generator, and you can see standby instruments and the battery starts getting depleted very quickly. You can actually see the amps being sucked out of the battery in real time, which is really cool. But of course, you can just fail the battery completely as well. But once you've finished doing all your testing, you can fix up the aircraft just by going to the AFB and repairing or resetting the aircraft, and everything goes back to normal. Of course, you'll need to wait for temperatures to come back down, but it won't damage the aircraft and everything will behave as if nothing happened. And that's the thing I love about this aircraft. Everything is thought out so well. It just works. It's so simple to be able to test out different failures, to quickly repair the aircraft, and how much detail is crammed into the systems. It's not clunky or overcomplicated to use. The AFB is really straightforward and really nice to use. But let's talk about some of the downsides of the aircraft that I personally find. Now, I think it's fair to say the aircraft only just came out. It's not a complete release, and I know the team are dedicated to making this aircraft absolutely perfect. But there are some quirks you need to know about. The first one being the aircraft is extremely pitch sensitive. So whether you're coming in on landing or taking off, just be careful with any jerky movements because it can really send you out of control. It's not a game breaker or deal breaker for me, but it is definitely noticeable. The other thing being the performance. Now, I've never flown this aircraft in real life or even seen one for that fact, but it just feels far too sluggish. And it has a decent engine. It just feels really, really underpowered. So getting out of those rough terrains or short runways, you really have to push the engine beyond its limits, which causes potential damage. So I'm not sure if this is going to be fixed up in later updates or if this truly is the performance of the aircraft, but it's worth noting it can be challenging. But other than that, the aircraft is genuinely one of the best out-of-box experiences I've had in Flight Simulator. It's incredibly well thought out, there's so much detail in the systems, so much that I can't even show on camera. It's just so hard to capture every nuance of the system. It goes so in depth, and the amount of detail they've crammed in this aircraft, from the sound package, the flight dynamics, the failures, the wear and tear, the dirt and dynamic persistence carrying over, it is just phenomenal. So if you're looking for a really good study level GA aircraft, this is definitely worth checking out. Now, I haven't checked out A2A simulations in MSFS just yet. Now, back in the day, they were what I'd say is the kingpin of study level GA aircrafts, especially in FSX and P3D. But in my opinion, this is 100% up there. This is phenomenal, the experience you get. And for the price, it is not horrible at all. But with all that said, let's land back at Southport and see if I can butter this landing. Again, the pitch is really sensitive on approach, so forgive me if it's not perfect. I'm really trying to trim out and just use as minimal inputs as I can. So we'll see how she goes. Now that's not bad at all. Compared to some of my other landings, this is pristine. But I can't thank you guys enough for watching, and also a huge shout out to SimWorks Studios for giving me a copy of this to try out. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe. It really helps me out, and I can't appreciate the support enough, guys. But as always, until next time, I'll catch you then.